Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on something really quite powerful for your interactions with others.
hmm
This whole idea of letting the other person save face.
hmm
It's key insight from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's more than just being polite, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a fundamental strategy, really, for
Yeah.
better communication, stronger relationships.
Right. And our mission today is basically to show you why it matters so much, what the actual impact is out there in the real world, and crucially, how you can start putting it to work yourself.
Yeah.
We'll look at how some big U.S. companies use this, explore some pretty fascinating business examples, give you concrete takeaways for different roles.
Like leaders, teammates.
Exactly. And customer service, too. And we've got this great story about an entrepreneur who completely turned his business around just by getting this one principle.
It's a good one. And you know what's fascinating right off the bat is just how deeply we all care about our own self-respect, our dignity.
Yeah, that feeling.
Think about those times, maybe, when you've been corrected in public or felt called out. That sting. It can be pretty intense, can't it?
Definitely. It stays with you.
It does. And Carnegie really, well, he nailed something essential there. He said, we have no right to diminish a person in their own eyes.
That's powerful phrasing.
It is. It's less about whether we think they made a mistake and much more about how they feel about themselves in that moment.
How their self-perception is holding up.
Exactly. And when that feels threatened, the fallout can be huge. And it's really important for you to grasp this. It isn't about just ignoring mistakes or letting things slide.
No, not at all.
It's about choosing how you address them, doing it respectfully, protecting the person's dignity while you deal with the issue.
Right. It's constructive, not destructive. It's about building connections, like you said, not putting up walls between people.
Yeah.
And when you give someone that space, that little bit of breathing room to maintain their dignity, even when something's gone wrong, you almost immediately see the defenses drop.
They become less guarded.
Way less guarded.
Right.
And much more willing to actually, own the situation and work with you to figure out a solution.
It opens the door to collaboration instead of conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And thinking longer term, it really protects the relationship itself. It builds goodwill.
Absolutely. Take that General Electric example with Charles Steinmetz.
Oh, yeah, great example.
Here's this brilliant guy, maybe a bit difficult to manage, I don't know, but indispensable. Instead of just firing him.
Which they could have done.
Right. They strategically moved him, gave him this consulting role.
So he kept his status, his prestige.
Exactly. He saved face
Mhm.
and GE. They kept access to his incredible mind, his expertise.
It was a total win-win.
Mhm.
Avoided a big conflict, kept the talent, a perfect case of prioritizing someone's sense of worth, really.
And it shows foresight, too. Now, let's flip that coin. What happens when you don't let someone save face?
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's where things can get messy.
Well, the negative chain reaction can be pretty bad. Resentment. That stuff can really build up. And those working relationships you count on every day, they can get seriously damaged.
People hold grudges.
They do. Remember that story Dale Carnegie tells about Fred Clark in Harrisburg?
The supervisor who got dressed down in public.
That's the one. Berated in front of everyone. And what happened? He quit. The supervisor, the one doing the berating, eventually had to leave too because the atmosphere got so toxic.
Wow. It just poisons the well.
Completely. When someone feels humiliated, that hurt pride. It doesn't just go away. It often leads to resistance, sometimes even, a desire to get back at the person who embarrassed them.
Yeah, retaliation. Or just quietly undermining things.
Exactly. So you might think you've won an argument by making someone feel small. Maybe you got your point across forcefully.
But what did you actually lose?
Right. What's the real cost? You likely lost goodwill, trust, maybe even a productive team member down the line. It's a short-sighted victory, if you can even call it that.
That's such a critical point. And it's not just internal company stuff, is it? It's huge in how U.S. companies deal with customers, especially when things go wrong.
Oh, absolutely crucial there.
Think about it from your own perspective as a customer. You call up with a complaint. You're already frustrated, maybe angry.
You just want the problem fixed.
Right. And the last thing you want is to feel like the company thinks you're stupid, or that your complaint is invalid, or that you're being difficult.
That just adds fuel to the fire.
Totally. So the really successful businesses, the ones known for great customer service, they get this. They train their people to prioritize letting you, the customer, save face during that whole resolution process.
It often comes down to genuine empathy, doesn't it?
It really does. Showing you understand their frustration. There's that classic phrase you sometimes hear from really good reps. Something like,
I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do.
yes, that exact phrase. It's so effective. Why do you think that works so well?
Well, it validates their feelings immediately, doesn't it? It says your reaction is understandable without necessarily agreeing with the specifics of the complaint yet. It just acknowledges the emotion.
It diffuses the tension,
That,
makes you feel heard.
exactly. And it doesn't make the customer feel wrong or silly for being upset. It creates common ground.
It really shifts the dynamic. I remember reading about that New York telephone company troubleshooter
Yeah.
example.
Yes, the one who dealt with that incredibly irate customer.
Yeah, this guy was apparently furious, shouting, cursing,
Tough customer.
very tough. And the troubleshooter, he
Well,
just listened. Over several visits, apparently.
yeah.
Patiently listened, acknowledged the frustration, never once interrupted to say, well, actually, or imply the customer was mistaken.
She just let him vent, validated the feelings.
Right? And the outcome?
The customer eventually calmed down completely, recognized the effort, and apparently became one of the company's biggest advocates. Praised the troubleshooter to everyone.
It's incredible. Just shows the sheer power of making someone feel understood and respected, even when they're angry. Didn't have to win the argument, just had to preserve the customer's dignity.
Precisely. Validation is key.
And, this isn't just about customers or those external interactions. It applies just as much inside a business, between colleagues, between managers and their teams.
Definitely. Businesses that handle internal mistakes or difficult situations with that same kind of grace, they tend to have a much healthier, more productive environment for everyone.
Yeah, I was thinking about that story of Claude Marais, the French restaurant owner.
With the employee who wanted to resign.
That's the one. A really vital employee puts in her notice. Now, Marais could have gotten defensive, maybe guilt-tripped her.
Or just accepted it resignedly.
Right. But instead, he took her aside privately, told her how valuable she was, how much her contributions meant, and then publicly, he expressed confidence in her abilities and her future, wherever she went.
So he made her feel important, appreciated.
Exactly. He let her save face, maybe even boosted her sense of importance. And what happened? She reconsidered. She stayed. And apparently became even more loyal and dedicated afterwards.
It's amazing how acknowledging someone's value can change their perspective, isn't it? He didn't beg, he just affirmed her worth.
He gave her the space to change her mind without feeling like she'd lost face either way. And there's another interesting example, the mayor.
Oh, the one who took his door off.
Yes. Instead of directly criticizing his aides for constantly interrupting him during meetings.
Which could have been embarrassing for them.
Right. He just had his office door removed.
Subtle, but effective.
Very effective. It sent a clear message, my door is always open, maybe too open. Without any direct confrontation or making anyone feel singled out or ashamed.
It addressed the behavior without attacking the person. It really highlights that sometimes these indirect methods, these ways of valuing the other person's dignity while still addressing an issue, can be much more powerful than a direct telling off.
Absolutely. So maybe we should break this down a bit. For people listening, how can they actually apply this? Let's think about different roles. What about for leaders?
Okay, yeah. For leaders, I think a few things are key. First off, always try to start with sincere praise or appreciation before you get into any criticism. Find something genuine.
Soften the ground first.
Exactly. And when you do need to address a fault, try doing it indirectly if possible, like the mayor example. Don't always go for the direct hit.
Maybe talk about your own similar mistakes first. That can make it feel less like an attack.
Oh, that's a great one. Shows vulnerability, makes it relatable. I remember when I struggled with this. That kind of thing.
Yeah. And instead of giving direct orders all the time, maybe ask questions. What do you think about trying this? Or how could we approach this differently?
Lets them feel ownership of the solution. Empowers them.
Right. And overarching all of that is just constantly looking for ways to let your team members save face, protect their self-respect, even when corrections are needed.
That should be like rule number one. And for teammates, people working alongside each other.
Good question. I think a lot of it comes down to just being mindful of how you communicate, especially when you disagree.
Respect is key.
Totally. Show respect for your colleagues' opinions, even if you think they're way off base. Avoid that blunt, you're wrong.
Nobody likes hearing that.
No. Maybe offer a different perspective gently, like, have we considered looking at it from this angle? Or ask a clarifying question instead of just stating they're incorrect.
Yeah, offer suggestions, not just criticisms. What if we tried?
Right. And generally aim for offering support and understanding rather than just pointing out flaws. Be constructive. Help them save face if they've made a mistake.
Builds much better team dynamics in the long run.
Okay, and what about customer service reps, people on the front lines?
Ah, yeah, super important there. I'd say number one priority, de-escalation. If someone's upset, job one is to bring the temperature down.
Active listening.
Absolutely. Listen actively, listen empathetically. Try to really understand where they're coming from. And acknowledge those feelings. Like we said before, validate the emotion without making them feel silly.
Yes. Use those phrases that show understanding. I can see why you'd feel that way, or that sounds really frustrating.
Makes them feel heard.
Exactly. And then focus on solutions. Find a resolution that works for them, satisfies their need, but also, crucially, leaves their dignity intact. They shouldn't walk away feeling foolish or dismissed.
Preserve the relationship, even if you can't give them exactly what they initially demanded.
Precisely. Now, let's maybe try and tie all this together with that entrepreneur story you mentioned earlier. Alex, let's call him.
Right, Alex. So here's this guy, incredibly talented in his field, but his business is just floundering, really struggling.
And why was that?
Well, a big part of it was his interaction style. In sales pitches, he'd often inadvertently make potential clients feel like they didn't know enough or push his solution so hard they felt cornered.
Okay, so alienating customers. What about internally?
Oh, internally, it was maybe even worse. He was hypercritical. If an employee made a mistake, he'd often point it out publicly, sometimes quite harshly.
Ouch. Not great for morale.
Not at all. So the result, predictable, really. Sales were low, employee turnover was high, the general mood in the office was pretty dismal. He was stuck.
Okay, so things were looking bleak. Then what happened?
Then he stumbled across Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And this principle, let the other person save face, really hit home for him.
Ah, the light bulb moment.
Kind of, yeah. And he made a very conscious decision. He decided he was going to actively apply this principle in every interaction, both inside the company and outside.
A deliberate change in approach. So what did that look like, practically speaking, inside the company first?
Okay, internally. Big shift number one.
Yeah.
Handling mistakes, those public reprimands, gone. Instead, he started having private conversations.
Focusing on solutions.
Exactly. The whole focus shifted from blame to problem solving together. His language changed. Instead of, how could you make such a basic mistake, which just crushes someone?
Yeah, it makes them feel terrible.
He started saying things like, okay, let's look at this together. How can we make sure this doesn't happen again? Collaborative, respectful.
Huge difference in tone. What else?
He started genuinely asking for input. Instead of just telling people what to do, he'd ask, what are your thoughts on improving this process? Or do you have ideas on this?
Making people feel their opinions mattered.
Right. And getting back to that earlier point, he started admitting his own mistakes openly.
Ah, leading by example builds trust.
Tremendously. He also began making a real effort to notice and praise improvements, even small ones, and to highlight people's strengths, making them feel valued.
And delegation.
Delegation changed, too. He started consciously conveying trust, saying things like, I know you're the best person to handle this, making people feel empowered, not just assigned a task.
Wow. Okay, so that's a massive internal culture shift. What about his external interactions? Customers, suppliers, etc.
Just as big a transformation there. Handling customer complaints. He adopted that empathetic listening approach we talked about.
Starting with, I understand.
Always.
Yeah.
I understand why you're feeling this way. Focusing on solutions, never making the customer feel wrong or blamed.
And negotiations, say, with suppliers.
He shifted from trying to win every point to looking for mutual benefit. How can we make this work for both of us? Building partnerships, not just transactional relationships.
Even with competitors.
Maintained respect. Kept it professional. Focused on his own company's strengths, not tearing down others.
And sales pitches. That was a big problem area before.
Huge change there. Less pushy, more focused on understanding the client's actual needs, letting them see the value, making them feel smart and in control of the decision. No more making them feel inadequate.
Letting them save face by discovering the solution themselves, in a way.
Exactly. And finally, any business conflicts that came up, he started looking for common ground first, understanding the other side's perspective, seeking collaboration over blame.
So the big question, did it work?
Dramatically, Alex's story is powerful because the results were so clear. Sales figures started climbing, then soaring.
And internally.
Employee morale completely turned around. Turnover dropped significantly. People felt respected, valued, part of a team. The whole business started thriving.
And he attributed this turnaround directly to consistently applying this one principle.
He did. He saw a direct link between consciously valuing the dignity of everyone he interacted with, employees, customers, suppliers, everyone, and the eventual success of his business. It really shows you the profound, tangible impact this approach can have.
It really does. So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it seems crystal clear, doesn't it? Letting the other person save face isn't just some nice-to-have soft skill.
No, it's fundamental.
It's a core principle for genuinely effective human interaction. And the benefits are real, stronger relationships, much better communication, less conflict, and ultimately, greater success in pretty much anything you're trying to achieve.
Well said.
We really hope, for everyone listening, that you'll think about how this applies in your own life, your own interactions.
Yeah. And maybe that brings us to a final thought, something for you to mull over.
Right.
Can you think back to a recent interaction, maybe a disagreement or a difficult conversation, where perhaps you could have done a bit more to let the other person save face?
A little self-reflection.
Right. And looking ahead, how could you maybe pay closer attention? Just observe the impact when you consciously try to protect the dignity of the people you engage with. It's a really powerful lens, I think, for improving pretty much all of your relationships and interactions.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're zeroing in on something really quite powerful for your interactions with others. This whole idea of letting the other person save face. It's key insight from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's more than just being polite, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a fundamental strategy, really, for better communication, stronger relationships.
Right. And our mission today is basically to show you why it matters so much, what the actual impact is out there in the real world, and crucially, how you can start putting it to work yourself.
Yeah.
We'll look at how some big U.S. companies use this, explore some pretty fascinating business examples, give you concrete takeaways for different roles.
Like leaders, teammates.
Exactly. And customer service, too. And we've got this great story about an entrepreneur who completely turned his business around just by getting this one principle.
It's a good one. And you know what's fascinating right off the bat is just how deeply we all care about our own self-respect, our dignity.
Yeah, that feeling.
Think about those times, maybe, when you've been corrected in public or felt called out. That sting. It can be pretty intense, can't it?
Definitely. It stays with you.
It does. And Carnegie really, well, he nailed something essential there. He said, we have no right to diminish a person in their own eyes.
That's powerful phrasing.
It is. It's less about whether we think they made a mistake and much more about how they feel about themselves in that moment.
How their self-perception is holding up.
Exactly. And when that feels threatened, the fallout can be huge. And it's really important for you to grasp this. It isn't about just ignoring mistakes or letting things slide.
No, not at all.